Hey everybody, today we're moving on to 9.5. 9.5, we're going to be talking about displaying data and ways to do that. And we're going to be looking at different bar graphs, histograms, and line graphs. We're also not only going to be looking at those three, also going to be looking at double bar graphs and double line graphs. The difference between a bar graph and a double bar graph, the double bar graph has two. And the difference between a line graph and a double line graph has two lines. All right? Got a couple of vocab words to talk about today. Here's the first one. All you have to do is write down this top part. You do not have to write the actual graph down. Just draw or write the displays and compares two sets of data. And go. All right, so a double bar graph, when you look at this, one of the biggest things that you need to do that I can teach you today is going to be these labels. Okay, the titles, the labels, and this key right here. All of this information is absolutely 100% necessary. And the reason behind that, if I took away everything else and just left these numbers in the bars, that graph means nothing. Literally nothing. If I don't have any labels to go along with it, I have no idea what I'm talking about or what you would be talking about if you create a graph. So when you create the graph, the very first thing that I want you to do is I want you to write down your labels. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a double bar graph here. So the first thing that I'm going to do when I create a double bar graph is I am going to get my graph here. All right? Notice I have my graph, nothing else. Now I'm going to plug in my labels. I want to plug in my labels first. And the reason why I do that is a lot of times what happens is students tend to draw the bars and then forget the labels. So get the labels done first. Get the title done first and then move on. So my title here that I would put, notice there really isn't any story problem. All I have to do is look at the table. My title would be Daily Hours Worked by 2 crews. So I have my title above. Now I'm going to start plugging in what I know. My daily hours worked, this right here, that's going to be my label on my x-axis. That's what I want to figure out. I'm going to be drawing bars from there for my x-axis. So daily hours worked is going to be my x-axis. What I have on my y-axis is going to be that numbers. These numbers that I'm plugging in is going to be on my y-axis. So what we do is we call that frequency. We call that the frequency. Now as I start plugging in numbers after I have my titles, okay, I start plugging in numbers. I know my hours worked. I go from 6 to 12. So I'm going to plug in 6 through 12 on my x-axis because that's my daily hours worked. And then on my y-axis, my frequency, if you look at crew A and crew B, what is the highest number it goes up to? 6. It goes up to 6. So I start at 1 and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. I go all the way up to 6 because that's the highest number, my highest frequency. Okay, and that frequency stands for basically how many days they work these daily hours. All right, so as I look at this now, I'm going to start off with my crew A and crew B. Okay, so my crew A worked 6 hours 4 times. My crew B worked it 5 times. Now, if you notice this, I have my 2 bars, they are connected. There's a little space here, okay? However, you wouldn't be able to tell what's between crew A and crew B. So what you do is, when you're dealing with one color, you have to find a way to distinguish them. And by shading, making this nice and colorful, you can color in this second one, and that stands for crew B. And we identify that by a little key off to the right. So here's what that looks like. So now that we have our labels, we have our title, we have our numbers, we have our key, now all we do is we plug in the bars. Okay, from 7, once I'm done with 6, I go right to 7. In the column 7, crew A went to 3, crew B went to 5. All right, and shade them in right here. Okay, now as we do this, again, notice there is still space here. There's space in between each of my individual bars. At 8, I go all the way up to 6 for crew A. Crew B is down at 4. And I finish with 9, 10, 11, and 12. And here's the finished graph. Okay, notice again, I continue to use these spaces. There's space in between both bars. Okay, now there's not spaces in between crew A and crew B, but there is in between 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, and that's a final double bar graph. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to make a double bar graph with the information that I'm going to place in here first. What I want you to do is I want you to start with labels. Then I want you to put in your title and a key. Then you plug in your bars, your numbers and your bars. Okay, so start with your title, labels, key, all of that information, and move on. Here is what I want you to graph about. So you're graphing about books read between boys and girls, and your books read are on top, up here, 1 through 5, and the number of boys that read 0 through 5 are right through here, and the girls who read 0 through 5 are right on the bottom. Okay, so what I want you to do is come up with a double bar graph. Make sure that you get your labels, your title, and your key. Labels, title, and your key, then make your double bar graphs. And go. All right, double check that you have those labels, titles, and keys, and this is what it should look like. Okay, I have my titles, my labels, my keys. My bars are going up to the correct data points. I have my key over there on the side that identifies boys and girls. Now, your title may be slightly different. Could be number of books read with boys and girls, or boys and girls in one class, or some variation of that. However, you absolutely need to have these in there in order for you to get those full points. Without that information, this graph means nothing. With just the bars, it doesn't mean anything. Okay? So make sure you keep those in there. Awesome. Now we're going to talk about a frequency table. What I want you to do is pause the video right now and write this down. All right. So we are going to be making a histogram, and we are going to be using frequency tables. What I want you to focus on when you see this, you don't need to write that table down, but when you look at this right here, okay, notice how we go from 360 to 389. That is 30 numbers. There are 30 numbers in there. Okay, from 390 to 419, again, we have 30 numbers. Each of these sections here has the same number of values. Okay, same number of values. Also, we do not see things repeated. All right, when I look at this table, it does not go from 360 to 390, and then from 390 to 420, and then from 420 to 450, so on and so forth. Because if you notice, if I had a data point of 390, it would go in 2 different places, and we do not want that. And the reason why we do that, it gives us inaccurate data. And we're going to use this frequency table on a histogram. And a histogram looks like this. write this information down. You may want to draw this shape. You can take out, this is the one time I'm saying you can take out titles, numbers, and labels, but you may want to just kind of write the graph with these bars. It's very important. So pause now, write this down. All right, so now as you look at this, histogram is essentially a type of a bar graph, but you need to have equal intervals. Like I said before, equal intervals, all of these are going up by 30 numbers each time. Also, there are no gaps between bars. Look at this, I even made an exclamation point. There are no gaps between bars, okay? There are no gaps in between here. They are connected. Okay, there is a gap right in here to start off with, and you want that gap. But once that gap is made, all of the bars are connected. They're all together. The bars are connected, not the bars with the graph. Okay, this would be the bars with the graph. There's space there. Connect all of the bars together. All right, so I'm gonna be making a histogram with these intervals. All right, and it asks me to make intervals of 5. All right, so if I'm going to make intervals of 5 units, I'm going to start at 0. Now, what would be my interval if I went up to 5? Well, 0 to 4. Then I would have 5 to 9. I would then move on, 10 to 14. Do I still need to keep going? Yeah, because 14 is not the highest number. My highest number is 20. 15 to 19. Am I done? No. I need to make another interval of 20 to 24. Okay? I need to keep these. This is my own individual frequency table. Okay? And I create a table that looks like this. Based on the information given from my lowest value, which is 2, to my highest value, which is 20. I'm going to go to the next slide here and show you what this looks like. So I have my frequency table. Okay, I made my intervals of 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24. I know this right here, this information is standing for my weekly allowance. How do I know that? It tells me right there. My frequency is the number of values I have. So how many what's the total number of values I have between 0 and 4? Well, I have 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. There are 3 values in between 0 and 4. And I just put a 3 in there and cross off my values. From 5 to 9, that includes 5. I have 1 here, 1 here, here, here. You sick of me saying here yet? Here, 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 here. How many values do I have between 5 and 9? 9. And crossing those off. Then, between 10 and 14, how many values do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 values there. Cross those off. Between 15 and 19, I see 2 values. And between 20 and 24, I see 1 value. Okay, so I have a 3, 9, 5, 2, and 1. Okay, when I add these up, what should it equal? 20, because I took the total number of 20 students. So I should have a frequency that adds up, cumulative frequency of 20. Now, creating my histogram. I have my bar there. Again, start with your labels. What are my labels here? I have my allowance on my x-axis, my frequency on my y-axis. Allowance on the x, frequency on the y. Now I need a title. What would be a good title? How about the title of the actual graph, or the title of the table? Weekly allowance of 20 students. Okay, so now I have my labels, I have my title. Now I'm going to add in my frequency and the intervals. My frequency goes on the side here on my y-axis. What do I need to go up to? What's the highest number that I have? I have 9. So I need to go 1 through 9 to figure out, to plug this in so I have accurate data. And then on my x-axis, that's where my intervals go, my weekly allowance. My x-axis is my intervals. And now all I'm going to do, just like my bar graph, is I'm going to create my bars. Okay, from 0 to 4, I had 3. From 5 to 9, I have 9. Now, the difference between from 5 to 9 is I need to connect my bars, go all the way up to 9, and then back down. From 10 to 14, 5. From 15 to 19, I have 2. From 20 to 24, I have 1. All right? And I have my histogram. If you look at that, that's going to be my beautiful histogram. Each one of these are connected. These should be connected here. All right? Questions? Concerns? Otherwise. All right, let's try one. Okay, so using this data, this one's going to be a little bit tricky. Okay, we need to come up with a frequency table first. So if you look at this, it says Tanya surveyed 14 children at an after-school daycare to find out how many hours they spent there. Use the data to create a histogram. Okay, it tells me this is my information. We are going to make a frequency with intervals of 30. Be careful. Intervals of 30. Intervals of 30. Okay, so when I do that, what number should I start with? Here's my frequency table. What number am I going to start with? Well, I'm going to start, and again, this is time spent at daycare. And my frequency. I am going to start at 1 minute to 0:30. That's 30 units. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 30 is 30 units. Then my next one would start at 0:31 to 1. 1:01 to 1:30 and finish it out. Notice, I did not repeat any of these values. I did not end with 30, then start with 30. I do not want to do that. If you have that, erase it, because you don't know where that 30 minutes would go to. You'd have to put it in 2. The information would be accurate. I need to have 30 units. Okay? So what I'm looking for on my frequency, how many units between 0 to 1? Then 30. Then 0 to 30, 0:31 to 1. Okay? I want you to pause the video, get your frequency, and I want you to create your histogram. See what you come up with. Create your histogram after you get your frequency. And go. All right. So as you look at this, from 1 to 30, has a frequency of 2. From 31 to 1, frequency of 2. From 101 to 130, frequency of 2. From 131 to 2, frequency of 4. And from 201 to 230, frequency of 1. And from 231 to 3, frequency of 3. These are my different units. What should it add up to? 14. Remember, there were 14, there are going to be 14 times, 14 children. So creating your histogram based on this data, it should look like this. I have my labels in there, I have my title in there, I have numbers in there. This is what I'm looking for. All right? Awesome. Questions? Concerns? Otherwise, let's check out the double line graphs. All right, double line graphs. The big thing with double line graphs is it shows how two related sets of data change over time. Line graphs, something over time. Something happens over time. And with a double line graph, there are two lines. So pause and write this down. All right, so if you look at this, again, we need to have our numbers, of course, but we need to have labels. We need to have a title. And with the double line graph, we need to have a key. You may not have two different colors, but you can always dash a line. Okay, dash a line. And I'll show you an example. All right, so here is a double line graph. This is a graph to estimate the number of radio stations and cable TV systems in 2002, a while back. Okay, we're going to use the graph, to estimate roughly what is it going to be in 2002. All right, so my very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my graph. What do I need to add in first? Labels. Now, one thing that you're going to notice here, okay, we're going to notice it's going to be at 9,000 and 10,000. That's where our primary focus is going to be. So instead of making a graph that focuses just on those small numbers, what I am going to do is I'm going to plug in my numbers, and I'm going to plug in my numbers at 1997, 1999, 2001, and 2003. Okay? I'm going to make a slight, what's called a break in the graph. Okay? This allows me to, and it's kind of like just like a little squiggly line. This allows me to skip from 0 all the way up to a higher number. And I am going to skip up to 9,000. Okay? 9,000. All right? And instead of going up by just thousands each time, I'm going to go up by 200s and go all the way up to 11,000. Now, I'm not using exact numbers, but I went from 9,000. It's kind of tough to see. Sorry about that. 9,000, 9,400, then 9,800, 10,200, 10,600, and 11,000. I went all the way up to 11,000. Each one of those little tick marks right here stand for 200. Okay, so on and so forth. So now I'm going to start off graphing radio stations. All right, so I have 10,200 radio stations in 1997, roughly. 10,444, right about here, in 1999. In 2000, got moved up just slightly, but 10,500 and 10,600, again, just slightly in commercial media. My line graph, I connect those dots. I do not connect it from 0, just connect the dots just like that. I do the exact same thing for cable TV stations. 10,950. Then it started going down. 1990 was 10,700. 9,924. And 9,339. Now, notice these are both in the same color, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dashed line here. Okay? That allows me to see which one is radio, which one is cable. However, I need to create something that allows me to say which one is which. I create a key. And my key looks like that. All right. So, again, titles. Labels, unbelievably important, importante, muy importante, all right? Awesome. So here is a data table, and what I want you to don't worry about the top information, don't worry about this stuff, okay? What I want you to focus on is just creating a double line graph. All right, so if you look at this, create that double line graph based on this information given. Write down the data table and create your own double line graph. Make sure that you include titles, labels, and a key. You are probably sick of me saying that. I don't care. Reminder. Remind you to create a title. Did you hear that? Title. remind you to plug in labels, 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 remind you to do a key, 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 and I'm done, done, done. Try it. Try it, try it. All right. Here is what your graph should look like. Notice I have my labels, my title, I have my key. Don't worry about this answer. We'll discuss that tomorrow. But the big thing I want you to focus on, labels, key, title, and then just graphing those points. All right, that's all I have for you today. Have a wonderful day. I will see you later. Bye.